you want to hear some music? You'd like that, wouldn't you? Well, today you're going to get all the music you want.
The request lines are now open. KGFJ Soul Radio.
Do it now, man.
Request lines are up.
It's open, man.
Got any Blue Oyster Cult?
No, I don't have any Blue Oyster Cult. I ate 34 pairs last time around. Where were you? I was that close to working at 7-Eleven, you know.
Pass the word along. Tell the men it's time to shoot the moon.
Shoot the moon!
Out there on the microphone. On the microphone.
Shoot the moon. Shoot the moon.
The attitude dictates that you don't care whether she comes, stays, lays, or prays. I mean, whatever happens, your toes are still tapping.
Hey, Strawberry! Oh, Strawberry. Hey, what's happening, man? How you doing? This is my friend.
Hey, how you doing, man?
What you looking at, man?
Oh, nothing. I wasn't looking. I wasn't looking at his neck, man.
Can you honestly tell me that you forgot the magnetism of Robin Zander or the charisma of Rick Nielsen?
That's kid stuff.
Kid stuff. Well, how about the tunes? I want you to want me. The Dream Police. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Build your muscles picking strawberries. You know, bend and scoop. Maybe I could get you a job with United Fruit. I got a buddy with United Fruit. Start with strawberries, you might work your way up to these goddamn bananas. When, boy, are you gonna get your act together?
We're creating a society of cell phone crazed, marijuana smoking zombies.
Coming to you not quite live from Lukewarm Tallboy Studios deep in the land of Gar, this is Bend and Scoop, the podcast featuring music, mirth, and minutia, focused on exposing artists you probably haven't heard, but should. I'm Bob, and I'll be your tour guide on this amazingly asymmetric auditory adventure as we journey to the center of your cochlea. Welcome to episode 42, which is how many years it's been since a certain former wool hat-wearing monkey first introduced us to Lucy and Ramona and Sunset Sam. Joining us at the end of the show to play a round of Is That Your Vinyl Answer and the Groovin' After Party will be our very special guests Trevor and Shane from the Album Divers podcast. We spread the gospel of vinyl here at Bend and Scoop, so be sure to tell us all about your favorite neighborhood record store by posting to @BendScoop on Twitter or Instagram using the hashtag SpinMomAndPop. Our record store of the week is Southtown Vinyl in San Antonio. You can follow them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Southtown Vinyl. And you can check out their website at southtownvinyl.tuneportals.com. LA Witch brewed up this ass-kicking track in their Cauldron of Rock. From 2020's Play With Fire, here's Firestarter on Bend and Scoop.
I got too much to do and not enough time.
do it for you on KFRC.
This flower kills birds. When she dies, she rots like flesh. This flower kills birds. When she dies, she rots like flesh. How can she be queen when she can't read maps? How can she be queen? Will you water her plants? Bang, 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 where they go? Bang, bang, to my heart. Bang, ma, 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 bang, 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 where they go? Bang, bang, to my heart. Bang, ma, 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 ma. She won't be the one to make a stop. Kills birds. When she dies, she rots like flesh. This flower kills birds. When she dies, she rots like flesh. How can she be queen when she can't read maps? How can she be queen? Well, you water her plants. Ah! Bang, 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 where they go? Bang, bang, to my heart. Bang, ma, 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 bang, 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 where they go? Bang, bang, to my heart. Bang, ma, 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 ma. She won't be the one to make a stop. Bang, 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 where they go? Bang, bang, to my heart. Bang, ma, 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 ma. She won't be the one to make a stop.
No prisoners taken there by another LA band, Kills Birds, with Worthy Girl from their 2019 self-titled debut. How Many is a podcast where I get together with my friends Jesse, Junior, Gary, and Scott to debate a variety of pop culture topics, including movies, sports, TV, music, and more. You can follow How Many on Twitter at How Many Podcast, and you can listen at howmanypodcast.com, where we just released a brand new episode in which we discuss breakfast cereals. Up next is this jam by DC-based Foxhall Stacks from 2020's The Half Stack EP. Here's Danish Movies on Bend and Scoop.
Can't stop talking about Danish movies. I like to watch them on the video. Can't understand a single thing they say.
Well, here we are. It is now 7:06. You have exactly 8 hours and 54 minutes to think about why you're here. Ponder the error of your ways. My office is right across that hall. Any monkey business is ill-advised. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Give you the answer to that question, Mr. Bender, next Saturday. Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.
Catch me on the corner of the mystic time, bleeding like the blighties on the winter rime. Feel me, see me, wouldn't wanna be me. Count of blocks on fire. When the baby's booming, we'll be on the pile.
Bloody Blighty there by Mick Trouble off 2019's It's the Mick Trouble LP. Have you ever wanted to host a podcast? Well, all you have to do to join the Mike Hunt and host your very own episode of Assume the Juxtaposition is send me your topic idea to lukewarmtallboy@gmail.com. You can follow Assume the Juxtaposition on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at AssumeTJPod. Beantown brings us this next track by The Dirty Truckers off their 2020 album Second Dose. Here's Help You Ann on Bend and Scoop.
Well, he's been putting you down, and he said he wants a sneaky
Urban Bad Lads, Lowell Mason,
and Steve Broughton of City Boy. And we were complete idiots until we listened to KTIM San Rafael.
This blue feeling, success, no one could care less. To you I can confess, I know you understand me. It's hard to move on with some part of you know. Good times will come, but not good times like those. Just these blue feelings.
Raining Sound out of Memphis has a new album on the way, so I wanted to get you ready by playing that one called Shaw from 2019's Abdication for Your Love. Campfire Songs is a podcast where I get together and share songs with my buddies Tom, Jim, and Todd. So be sure and follow us on Twitter at Songs Campfire and give us a listen for more great music. Our latest episode is available now. From New Orleans comes Silver Synthetic with this catchy tune from their 2020 EP Out of the Darkness called Any Way I Can, here on Bend and Scoop.
Where's some people gonna get you down when life is a twist of fate? It don't matter if I'm skipping town. I'm always looking for a new way out, and I'll get there any way I can. Any way I can. I'll get there any way I can. Any way I can. Where's some people that like to talk about some shit that they don't know? They'll never know where it's at, and I always have a place to go, and I'll get there any way I can. Any way I can. I'll get there any way I can. Any way I can. Oh, 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 oh. I'm filling up my cup, 'cause I'm sick of the same old stuff. No, I'm never gonna give it up. When I'm a million miles away from death, I'll get there any way I can. Any way I can. I'll get there any way I can. Any way I can.
is going on in here? What was that ruckus?
What ruckus?
I was just in my office and I heard a ruckus.
Could you describe the ruckus, sir?
Watch your tongue, young man. Watch it. What is this? What is that? What is that? What is that noise?
What noise?
Really, sir, there wasn't any noise.
Now, I may not have caught you in the act this time, but you can bet I will. You make book on that, Missy.
Real Estate bassist Alex Bleeker there with La 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 from his brand new solo record, Heaven on the Fault Line. Pausable Deniability is a monthly podcast I co-host with my pal David Miller, which you can follow on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at Pause Deny. We post new episodes on the first day of every month. Don't forget to stick around for the end of the show, when we'll be joined in the Groovin' After Party by our special guests Trevor and Shane from the Album Divers podcast. Let's kick off an Austin twofer with this one by the Zoltars from their 2020 LP Mystery Kids called Vulnerability here on Bend and Scoop.
Streaming up, speak sadly about things that I tried.
Private Funeral Home, Sackham and Packham. Why, no, Sheriff, I hadn't. Well, I'll look right now. Yes, I've got my IJ right here. Just a minute. Business, sports section, television, comics. Gee, what's Miss Peach into? Let's see, here it is. Obituaries. Well, I'll be darned, Sheriff. He is dead. Hold the phone a second. Hey, Bert!
Huh?
Hey, put the Independent Journal down a second and get the table ready. We've got a rush job coming in.
Marin's Independent Journal. News and a lot more.
I don't know where your pants are. Here, put one of these sheets on.
But I don't like white.
Ooh, you scared me. You look like a ghost.
Closing out our Austin twofer there is Annabelle Chairlegs with Candy Apple Red from their 2020 album Gotta Be in Love. Remember to be sure and check out our Bend and Scoop Spotify playlist. If we played it and they haven't, you can listen to it there. And if you enjoy listening to what we do here on Bend and Scoop, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. How many of you were good kids in high school? And how many spent Saturdays in detention as members of the Breakfast Club?
A brain, a beauty, a jock, a rebel, and a recluse.
Can't believe this is really happening to me.
Before this day is over, they'll break the rules.
Chicks cannot hold their smoke. That's what it is.
Bare their souls.
I'm a nymphomaniac.
Are your parents aware of this?
Take some chances.
Being bad feels pretty good, huh?
And touch each other in a way they never dreamed possible.
Why'd you do that?
Because I knew you wouldn't.
The Breakfast Club. They only met once.
I don't want to be alone anymore.
You don't have to be.
But it changed their lives forever.
I mean, I consider you guys my friends. I'm not wrong, am I?
Universal Pictures presents Emilio Estevez, Paul Gleason, Anthony Michael Hall, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, and Ali Sheedy in a John Hughes film.
Why are you being so nice to me? Because you're letting me.
The Breakfast Club.
Come See about me, I'll be alone, dancing, you know it, baby. Tell me your troubles and doubts, giving me everything inside and out. And love strange, so real in the dark. Think of the tender things that we were working on. Slow change may pull us apart when the light gets into your heart, baby. Don't you forget about me. Don't you forget about me. Will you stand above me? Look my way, never love me. Rain keeps falling down, down, down. Will you recognize me? Call my name or walk on by. Rain keeps falling down, down, down. Hey, 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 hey! Don't you try to pretend it's my feeling will win in the end. I won't harm you or touch your defenses, vanity and security, yeah. Don't you forget about me, I'll be alone, dancing, you know it, baby. Going to take you apart, I'll put us back together at heart, baby. Don't you forget about me. Don't you forget about me. As you walk on by, will you call my name? As you walk on by, will you call my name? When you walk away, will you walk away? Will you walk on by? Come on, call my name. Will you call my name? And I say la, 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 la,
People listen to people. So listen, people.
Welcome to the Groovin' After Party. Come on in and pour yourself a cold one.
Joining me now for our Groovin' After Party here on Bend and Scoop are Trevor and Shane from the Album Divers podcast. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure to be here.
So tell everybody a little bit about Album Divers.
All right, I'll start. Shane and I are both physical therapists, and we met at a conference. And, you know, obviously, initially our relationship started around our shared profession, and we were texting back and forth after getting to know each other at the conference about that. And then somehow we started sharing music and realizing we both had a passion for that. And it was one of those things that after talking back and forth, I had the idea of doing a podcast at some point, and I started thinking, who do I know that might want to do this with me? I knew I didn't want to do it by myself. And I texted Shane, and he said, yeah, that sounds interesting. And we've been going a little over a year now.
Awesome. I got to tell you, I listened to the Deja Vu episode recently.
Oh, thanks for spending all the time doing that.
Well, I mean, I immediately went and looked through your previous episodes and wanted to key in on and start off with an album that I really, was familiar with and enjoyed. And I was really glad I picked that one because you guys did an awesome job doing the track by track deep dive. And I am very much of an obsessive when it comes to like backstory and trivia and stuff. So it's rare that something comes up that I wasn't aware of, but like you guys talked about stuff like Jerry Garcia's solo being a first take, and like Stills, the notorious perfectionist, was like, no, I'll record another one to humor you, but and I was like, man, I had no idea. And you listen to it and it's like, I can't even believe. And he was like, oh, I barely even know how to play the pedal steel. I'm just learning. And I was like, man, he just nailed it.
Yeah, that's probably one of the coolest experiences that we've had with this podcast, is finding those little fun facts, even on an album that you think you know pretty well. It adds so much more meaning and adds to the listening experience, knowing some of the backstory.
Now, Shane, was it your dad or Trevor's who was the one that sold you on doing this one over the first Crosby, Stills and Nash record?
That was my dad. I was actually leaning toward the debut self-titled album by Crosby, Stills and Nash. But I texted my dad. So I texted Trevor first, and I said I was debating between the two, and I was leaning toward the first one. And Trevor said, ooh, I know the second one better. So I sent my dad a text and let him be the tiebreaker. And he said, definitely go with the second one because, for somebody growing up through that era, what he remembers of Crosby, Stills and Nash was young in the group as well. And that really elevated them to a whole nother level. So he convinced me to do that one. And I'm glad I did, because it was really good.
Well, it was a really good choice, and either one you wouldn't have been able to go wrong on. And one thing that's really cool looking through your back episodes is you guys really have a nice mix of, current or recent, modern releases and some more, kind of classic era. I see, got Heart, Dreamboat Annie on there, which obviously was, 70s record, Pet Sounds. So there's something for everybody. There's not just, one era you guys are really focusing on.
Yeah, definitely. That's part of our criteria in the format of our podcast, is that we take turns between picking an older album, one that stood the test of time, at least a few years old, but some classic albums in there as well, and one that's been released this calendar year. So what we've been doing is selecting in pairs. I'll pick an older album and a new one from this year, and then we'll switch and Trevor will pick his. So that allows us to go over some of the iconic albums of all time, some of our favorites from our childhood, and then also forces us to really tune into the new music that's being released and make sure that we're not losing sight of some of the great music that's coming out today.
That's awesome. Now, have you guys ever done any listener submissions before?
We're always open to that. Yeah,
definitely.
We've had some suggestions, and I don't know if we've taken any of them other than from people that we already know, like, Shane's dad's input on our Crosby, Stills, Nash Young episode, but we're always happy to explore new music and hear suggestions from people that might be listening.
I have some on the list from recommendations from listeners. But man, there's so much good music, and the way we like to do it, we like to spend 2 or 3 weeks going through the album personally and sharing our experience and really connecting on the music before we get together and record our podcast. So we don't like to rush that process. And when we sit down to record, a lot of times we're on the mics for 3 or 4 hours.
So you guys really edit it down, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we go off on tangents and then we decide maybe we shouldn't include that stuff.
Easily digestible, like 2 hours is
right. Yeah.
an episode for us.
You could always do like a 2-parter, side A, part 1, side B, part 2.
Considered that.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
And then you got 2 months covered too, or two time frames. Yeah.
Flip the episode over and listen to side B.
Appreciate you noticing that, as with us picking older and newer ones and alternating back and forth. That was really important to us. I think both of us are, we're in our mid 30s at this point, and I found myself, even being somebody that's a deep lover of music, kind of falling into that trap of just wanting to hear something that I knew and not exploring quite as much as I would have in my high school or college years, sort of those coming of age years. And I really missed that. I remember how much I connected to the music, they say, of your day. And I want music of my day to be today for the rest of my life. And I think this podcast has forced us to do that, to say what's coming out today, making those connections between albums of the past. You can see that thread of influence from, classic artists to ones that are making music today. And it always bothers me when people of a certain age say, music's not what it used to be, just because it's so much, probably more. There's more crap too, but there's more great albums if you just know where to look. We were talking before we started the recording here about the radio not being the place to find it anymore, but that doesn't mean there's not so many outlets to find music. And that's what we're hoping to do with our podcast. And hopefully we've done that so far, and it's exciting to continue that process going forward.
Have either of you brought an album to the table that the other one hadn't heard yet, like a recent one for recording on the show?
Yeah, it's happened quite a bit. I'll have to admit, Trevor is much more of a music scholar than I am. He knows a lot of the great albums of the past, some of those obscure albums that music critics may know but weren't mainstream enough that everybody would come across them. So that's been fun. There's been some that were really monumental to Trevor's upbringing that he shared with me. So it's been cool for him to go through it again, like the Sunny Day Real Estate episode that we did. And then for me to hear it as the first time through, in that contrast of listening experiences.
So Shane, your dad obviously was a big music fan. Trevor, were your parents influential on you as well when you were coming up, as far as what you listened to? Or
Definitely. Yeah. I mentioned in our first episode that one of my earliest memories of connecting to music was driving around the car with my dad. I grew up in Eastern Washington, and then we ended up moving to Seattle. But during the time I was living in Eastern Washington, we would make drives to Seattle often to watch Mariner games. I'm wearing my Griffey shirt
there you go.
today. And that was always part of what we would do, is we'd stop by the record store in Yakima and pick up a couple records. Oftentimes it almost mirrors what we do with our podcast in a way. He would pick something from his era, like a Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, or Cat Stevens, something like that was important to him growing up. And I was just at that age where I was starting to pay attention. So I remember going and picking up, an Oasis or a Green Day album, something like that. And so he'd play his, I'd play mine. And we got a little bit of that, old and new back then. So in a way, I think that idea somewhere in my mind might've been percolating when we started the podcast. So yeah, very influential on my music upbringing too.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned hearing it in the car with your dad. That's exactly what it was with me as well. Family road trips and whatever music he was playing in the car. And fortunately, it was, stuff that was pretty good, and that I ended up, really enjoying, whether it was, Rolling Stones, Elton John, or even, Willie Nelson, that sort of stuff. Just, hearing that as a kid, and then it just had a big impact on what I started listening to, and just kind of a lifelong love of music from there, really.
Yeah, I can definitely relate.
So let's learn a little bit more about both of your respective personal musical journeys and play around with something we like to call, Is That Your Vinyl Answer? And we're going to start off with each of you. What was the first record you ever bought? Could have been any format, vinyl, CD, whatever.
You go first, Shane.
Oh, man. I think Trevor and I tried to figure this out on our intro episode to our podcast when we were talking about our history and upbringing with music. I know when I was younger, growing up, I would go down to the music store and buy a lot of singles, because back then I didn't get much for allowance, and I probably couldn't afford a CD, a full album. So I bought a ton of singles, but the first full album that I remember, I was a big punk rock fan growing up through my early teen years, or even pre-teen years maybe. And I became a big fan of Blink-182. I think everybody in my generation growing up that liked punk rock was a fan of Blink-182. And I picked up a live album of theirs. I'm drawing a blank on the title, but that's the one that sticks out in my head that I remember the most. It may not have been the first, but I'm staying with that as my answer, because that's what I remember.
Do you remember what your first single was that you bought?
Gosh, you know what? It was probably a pop song. I'm thinking through. So I have, the way I would know that it was maybe my first is that I still have a bunch of cassettes that are singles from back in the day. And I remember Quad City DJs, Come On Ride the Train, Alanis Morissette, ironic.
Yeah.
I had the song Bitch by Meredith Brooks. I remember that much.
I remember that one.
So yeah, something in the mid 90s, probably. I was born in 1987, so I probably didn't start buying
You guys are
my
so
own
young.
music until mid late 90s, probably. So, yeah, that's probably it. I don't know. What about you, Trev?
Yeah, it's funny. Listen to you recount that, Shane. We've talked on our podcast a couple of times about how even just those few years can make a difference in what somebody might have been digesting. I'm 84. He's 87 in terms of when we were born. My first one, I think I had mentioned Oasis when I was talking about getting music from that. I think What's the Story, Morning Glory was the first full album I bought. It's either that or, being a Seattle guy, it was potentially the Presidents of the United States of America.
Oh, I have that too.
That was Peaches
I
and
have that on cassette.
Yeah,
that might be the first ones I bought. So I was just a little too young for like the Nirvana thing.
Yeah.
I would have been just it was a little too edgy for me. Of course, I went back and listened to it after, but I was more in the kind of second wave of post-grunge in terms of my coming of age years.
Those are definitely some very 90s
Yes, exactly.
iconic releases for sure.
Totally. Yeah, we're definitely 90s kids.
Do you guys remember, and I guess we'll stick with you to start with, Trevor. Do you remember where you bought the Oasis record?
That's a definite yes. There's a little record store in Yakima, Washington that still exists, although I've heard it's moved to a different location, but it's called Off the Record. And I remember after getting a little bit older and really getting into music, you could buy records at the mall. And I just remember turning my nose up at that, just thinking this, you don't buy records at the mall. And I'd go to Off the Record, and they were always really helpful. I mean, everybody behind the register at Off the Record, it was like, I want to be that guy when I grow up, because they know where all the good music is. I'd come in and say, I saw this song on MTV, and I'd try to describe it, and they'd be like, I know what you're talking about. Point me in the right direction, and then oftentimes go, but you should really try this, listen to this instead, because they were a couple of years older than me. And they'd often, it was CDs at that time, of course, and they'd often let me, they'd be very carefully lift up the plastic so that they wouldn't break the seal.
Yeah.
Let me pop the CD in and stay there in the record store for like an hour, listen on headphones, even if I didn't end up buying it, so they could then put it back on the shelf and sell it. Stuff like that, where I just thought, this is my store. So Off the Record, Yakima, Washington.
How about you, Shane?
I definitely know the place. I can't remember the name of it, but it was the only music records, movie, entertainment type store in town. I come from a small town, about 10,000 people. Carroll, Iowa is where I'm from. And I don't know, the town's probably only 5 miles by 5 miles. And this store was bikeable. So I remember growing up as kids, as friends, we would hop on our bikes and bike down to the store and just hang out for a while and go through, all the singles at that time to see what we wanted to spend our $3 on that we probably had in our pocket.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that store exists anymore back home, but I do remember it.
Do you know, Shane, if you still have that Blink-182 record?
I do. Yeah, definitely.
You do?
Yeah.
And Trevor, do you still have the Oasis?
I don't have it on that format anymore. CDs, I don't collect as much now. Even though that was my coming of age music, I either I'm digital, high quality digital, or we talked about vinyl. I've rebought a bunch of things on vinyl. I actually don't know if I've rebought What's the Story, Morning Glory, but a lot of the albums that I got in my coming of age years, I've rebought on vinyl.
I've kept all of mine, even though you don't really need it anymore. For me, it's the keepsake. It's kind of like buying a physical copy of a book and being able to store it on your bookshelf versus, getting an e-copy. So I still have mine. I don't have a very big collection because again, being a 90s kid, I grew up through the Napster era.
Oh, yeah.
When there was a time, when we transitioned to not having to buy CDs anymore and being a cheap kid. I have a bunch of, burned CDs and whatnot, but I always made a point to go out and buy CDs of the bands that I really liked. So even if I was able to get a hold of some copies of some studio albums, I would still go out and buy a couple live albums or greatest hits or something, because I almost felt guilty, like I needed to support the band a little bit. So I've hung on to all of those that I bought as a child. Not that I pop them in and listen to them anymore, but it's just kind of cool to have it anytime I go back home and I can flip through and see what I was listening to. It's kind of fun.
Which band or artist's albums make up the largest portion of your collection? It could be a physical collection. It could be what you've got on your iPod, whatever the case.
Dave Matthews Band, only because he's released like 75 albums or something crazy like that.
In fact, all the live albums and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I have the most of him because of that reason. I was a huge fan for a while, and I still am. I've seen him in concert a few times, but I love his live music. So I did see him live once. This would have been in the late 90s, probably like either 97 or 98. And he was opening for the Rolling Stones along with Matchbox 20. No way.
I think that was those Matchbox 20, Dave Matthews and the Rolling Stones. So yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. How about you, Trevor?
Yeah.
I was thinking while Shane was answering, I think probably the artist that I have the most copies of, and in my physical is vinyl, is a local Seattle artist, singer-songwriter named Damian Gerardo.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
You know who he is? Yeah.
Absolutely. I've got almost all of his stuff.
Okay, yeah. We will have to talk more about him then. I don't run into too many people that know him outside of Washington. But he's just, as you may know, he's so prolific. He's putting out an album like every year. In fact, he's got one coming out next month, I saw.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they're always so different. He goes through these different phases. He always keeps that singer-songwriter vibe, but he's gone through kind of like a dream pop phase and more of like the folksy phase. And so I'm always excited to hear what he's doing. And because he's so accessible living in Seattle, I don't think he's there anymore, but when both of us lived there, I go to so many of his shows. And of course, on the merch table, they've got the new album that's out, and I can't say no to that. So I've probably purchased more of his music than just about anybody else's.
He had the album, and I'm blanking on the title, but it's the one where on the cover it's got like the geodesic dome. And all I remember when I was listening to it the first time, I was like, "This is great," but this is like literally cult rock, like religious cult music. And sure enough, the Netflix doc, was it Wild Wild Country or whatever, they used the one song like that I immediately associated with that. I'm like, yes, somebody else had that thought when they heard this.
Well, if it's fitting, you couldn't remember the album title. I do. It's called Brothers and Sisters of the Eternal Sun, I think, which sounds about as cult-like as you can possibly get. Yeah. Great album.
It is. It's a great album. But I know exactly what you mean, because he does do that where periodically, and like I Break Chairs, which is just like a full on, like almost like a hard rock album,
Yeah, that was when he was trying to fit in with that. That was on Sub Pop, that album, which was a Seattle-based record company. He was kind of trying to fit into that vibe for a little bit. I think it's a great album, but you're right. That one deters a little bit from. I liked his few that. I think that Brothers and Sisters one ended I think he did 3 or 4 with a producer named Richard Swift that unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. But I love all those records, starting with St. Bartlett, and then my favorite, Maricopa, is the second one he did with Richard Swift. That's a great album.
Yeah, those are really good. Yeah. The thing about him is every one of his records, they're even the quote unquote weaker ones, there's at least 2 or 3 songs I really like on them. So he's
definitely,
he's always got good stuff. And
so a funny answer to your question, but I think that's probably what I have most of.
No, that's good. And I'm trying to think, I might have, if not all of his stuff, most of it for sure.
Okay.
Him and David Bazan, I kind of think of them in a similar vein, although, he's got Pedro the Lion, and then he's got all these other like offshoot bands, Low Tom, all, you know, so.
Yeah. Well, you got good knowledge. Wow. All right. I have Crazy. To then have to drop my, my one claim to fame here.
Yeah. You can tell your story.
Okay. Let's hear this.
Dave Bazan just comes up on multiple episodes of ours, and one reason or another. But the first reason was when I was 16 years old, I was in a little garage band, and we got to open for Pedro the Lion. So I got to play a show with him in 2000.
Man,
and that was really fun. And then also he does house shows, and he came and played a house show at my folks' house on my 30th birthday. I put in a bid saying, been a fan of yours forever, got to open for you when I was a kid. I'd love to have you play your house show at my place, or my folks' place. And he or his manager said, okay. So got a whole bunch of strangers in my living room and Bazan playing all his music. It was awesome. One of the best birthday presents ever.
That is really awesome. That's fantastic. It definitely tops my meeting him at an in-store 15 years ago story. Like, I tried to take a selfie before there were cell phones. It was just like a camera, and I looked terrible. So I never shared the photo because I was making some kind of contorted face because I'm holding the camera out. But yeah, man, I just think of him and Gerardo in similar veins because, I mean, obviously they're, you know, kind of have similar backgrounds, and but they also have that where they vary their style and their sound periodically, you know. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They grew up together. I think they lived together for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew they had some sort of association. So yeah. So I'm sorry about the tangent. I
started it.
Yes. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. So for him, which album would you say is your favorite, Trevor?
You're talking of Gerardo.
Gerardo, yeah.
Well, Maricopa is my favorite.
Maricopa?
Gerardo, yeah.
Okay. And Shane, what about Dave Matthews? What's your favorite Dave Matthews record?
Oh, man. That's tough. I'll stick to studio albums, and let's see, because most of the music I listen to would be some of his live albums. He's got a Live at the Gorge series and Live at Red Rocks. Those are my favorite. But for studio albums, I think I'd have to say Busted Stuff.
Okay,
that was really, really influential through, I don't know, late high school, early college. I listened to that a lot. I pretty much have all those songs memorized. So it's got to be my favorite.
Awesome. Now, which album by any artist have you purchased the most over the years? I mean, this could be replacing it, getting a different format, buying it as a gift, whatever the case might be.
That's a tough one.
Anyone come to mind, Trevor?
Probably for me, it's going to be August and Everything After by Counting Crows. That's one of the albums, no matter what phase of my life I was in, I've always liked that one. And, you know, like you said, very, very 90s. And there's
you would have been like, what, 10 when that came out?
Probably something like that. Yeah, probably something like that. There's certainly albums from the 90s that I kind of look back on and go, okay, that was a phase. But for whatever reason, I've just always loved Counting Crows. Not necessarily everything they put out always, but I can always go back to some of those albums. And I always have to have, no matter what format I'm listening to, I've always got to have August and Everything After it close at hand. So
it's a pretty flawless record. I mean,
it's pretty flawless, I think. Yeah.
Shane, what about you?
Gosh, I don't know. I haven't gotten into vinyl yet, so I don't have a big collection. I have that small collection of CDs and cassettes from when I was a kid, but I haven't purchased too much music, and I don't know if I have too many super close friends or family that are big enough music people that I would have bought much for gifts. So I'm not really sure how to answer that question. If you said what artists or album have you recommended the most
that'll work.
to people? I can twist the question a little bit. I would probably have to say Southeastern by Jason Isbell.
Ah, good choice.
Which is not the Jason Isbell album that we reviewed on our podcast, but possibly my favorite. I don't know. I go back and forth between that and Something More Than Free, which is the one that we reviewed, but Southeastern is so good. I feel like that's as close to a perfect album as you can get.
Did you enjoy him dating back to the Drive-By Truckers as well, or are you more of just a solo Isbell fan?
No, I was introduced to Isbell when I was living out in North Carolina. I don't know, close to, how long ago was that? Maybe 7-8 years ago now. So I came onto the scene kind of late, but I had a coworker who was a huge fan, and he turned me on to him. So went through all of his stuff and then went back through the Drive-By Truckers after that. So didn't know him early, but I've made an effort to go back and understand his history. Yeah, because I love the guy, and just released another album last year that was pretty damn good too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely. So, who among your friends and family, you can include yourself in this, has currently the largest vinyl collection? Trevor, what about you?
Yeah, that's easily my friend Christian that lives. He actually left Seattle after I moved away and lives in Bellingham now. But this guy, he's a little bit older than me. He's in his early 50s. He loves hi-fi and vinyl so much that he actually rented out a room in a little area in Seattle called Ballard, and he would have he called it the Politburo, and he would have little record listening parties that would oftentimes start at like 10 p.m. No windows in this room, and just a little fridge with every good microbrew you could think of, because it was BYOB. And amazing setup. I mean, I don't know how much money and time he'd put into the room treatment and the speaker placement and all the things that he did. And then just more vinyl than you could ever listen to. And I would spend time in there, and I'd walk out, after starting at 10 p.m., it'd be like 3 a.m. and I would think, how did all those hours fly by?
Yeah.
So that would definitely be my friend Christian.
And how about you, Shane?
Easy answer for me, that'd be my dad. Or I should say my folks, because my mom has some in there as well. But they have a pretty big collection from the 60s and 70s that I managed to find buried in a big storage closet when I was back home a few years ago. So that's been fun, going back through and seeing what they had, what they were listening to back then.
That's awesome. Now, how much vinyl do each of you currently have in your own collections?
I have, let me pull up my little Discogs app and I'll tell you exactly. This makes for good radio while you wait for me to give you an
And I know,
answer.
Shane, you said you don't have a huge collection right now?
No, I mean, I have some that I've inherited from my folks, but I haven't gotten big into it. That's one thing on my list. I would like to get a nice record player and start to explore that a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah. Trevor, are you close enough that you can show him your collection? You still have it organized?
Man,
nicely?
Unfortunately, I'm not portable, but I'll
okay.
afterwards.
Yeah, send him a photo. He's got a pretty nice setup with all of his.
That's awesome. I'm trying to rebuild
speakers.
mine. I had a decent one back in the 80s when I was a teenager, and then when CDs came out, I'm like, oh, well, these are obsolete now. I need to buy CDs so I can sell these records and buy CDs with them. And now I'm like, oh, why did I ever do that? So I'm rebuilding, and probably up to about, I'm getting closer to 100 now. Not quite 100, but getting up there.
Nice.
Mine says I've got about 250.
Ooh, that's a nice
255 is what it says on there.
Nice solid number there. Nice solid number. So, Trevor, when you do go get records, do you have a favorite mom and pop store there in San Francisco that you like to frequent?
I've lived here for just a couple years, and COVID has taken up one of those. And then we moved from San Francisco to the East Bay in the middle of that. So I haven't really found my spot yet here in the Bay Area, and there's a million of them. So I need to figure it out. I've got a buddy that's just got a record player as well, and so we have it on our list to go to a record store together, and we've got a couple scouted out. But with the baby just being born, that's the other wrinkle in all of that.
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't the baby, the buying a house and then COVID thrown all together with the little move from the Bay, it's from the city area to the East Bay. I haven't really found my spot yet, but I will.
I'm sure you will. Shane, is there a place that you have there in your hometown?
I travel a lot for work, so I'm not rooted anywhere full time. But
when you do travel, are there any places that you found that you like?
Well, I've found it enjoyable to hit up garage sales and Goodwill and sift through the vinyl collection there. I've picked up a couple over the years. Yeah, because people don't know what they're giving up sometimes. There's some good stuff. So that's always a fun spot. But like I said, it's on my list of things to get into. So I don't have my go-to spot yet. But I have started to look for a good player and I've been on Facebook Marketplace. And surprisingly, there's a lot of people getting rid of their old vinyl collection. So if you hop on there, a lot of people, to them, it's probably just collecting dust and they don't really value it anywhere near what we would or any music fan. So that's a place I've been seeing people post collections too. And once COVID is passed and it's safe to go, hang out with people and go through some stuff, I might start doing that.
Awesome. Well, guys, before I let you go, let's get all of the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook account info for Album Divers and let everybody know how they can follow the podcast.
Sure. Most of the places you find us is just Album Divers. So we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter and Facebook. And then our email, if you want to email us and suggest a album for us to maybe cover, it's just albumdiverspodcast@gmail.com.
Perfect. Guys, thanks so much for being on. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, great podcast. Love the concept. You guys do a really good job going deep. I love all the way you incorporate the, clips of the tracks from the album and all the effort you put into it. It really, really comes out and it's a really good listen.
Thanks,
appreciate that. We just have fun with it and we're happy getting to share music with each other. And if other people are listening or interested, that's just icing on the cake for us. So hopefully we get a couple people that are appreciating it like you. And thank you so much for having us on the show.
You bet. And I definitely am going to continue listening to you guys moving forward. Look forward to
awesome.
hearing as many albums that I love, but also maybe learning about some I don't know. So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, lardass.
Bend and Scoop is a production of Lukewarm Tallboy Studios.
We will return tomorrow morning with the sun.
Good evening, and have a good life.